Hello everyone, thanks for coming this afternoon, and I hope we really do give you a more in-depth flavour to this new qualification, a bit more than what the launch was able to do. Obviously the launch was there to talk about the new qualification, and what we can do today is delve in a little bit more and think about how, why, where, and those kind of questions. And I'll show you the questions that myself and Mel bounded around at the start when we heard about this qualification as well. So we've got two questions for you to have a think about on the screen. Obviously the second one's a maths question, just to get you into the extended maths certificate kind of thought process. And then the first one, I don't think anyone will know the answer bang on, but it's always worth and having those kind of figures in the back of your head, particularly when you're thinking about this qualification.
So we've actually only got 31 students that got full marks, then 70, then 64, etc., etc. So if we were in this situation, out of 231,000 candidates, if we were in the situation where we had thousands or even tens of thousands of students getting these kind of marks, I would be in agreement with saying, yes, we should be extending these students. But until we're in that point, we've got to deepen their knowledge of the existing content. And that is all we're going to say about that, because I think it's just supporting why this qualification is really important. But it is a big elephant in the room for me, because I was like, well, I want to do, but there's lots of reasons why I shouldn't be going off to teach them level 3 content at this point. So I just wanted to address that one, cut it off at the knees, and we'll not say anything else about that.
Right, question number 2.
Aha, lots of people got the right answer for that.
The answer in there. Well, I'll go into these a little bit more. In fact, I think I'll do on the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Some of these great starters, great thinking, posing thinking questions, and that's what this is about. It's about the love of maths. It's about thinking outside the box. It's about putting the maths that we know into context, into real life, into where does this go? Why does it go there? And I've got a particular maths teacher in my department who, when I showed him the book and talking through the content of it for this qualification, his words were, "That is right up my street." And I think a lot of us in the chat today, I'm sure you were looking at that question and going, yes, I like that. And the fact that we've got so many answers coming in for it as well. So we'll go into a little bit more about the book later on and how it can support the learning and develop it for the students. But yeah, they're brilliant. And we've got a spreadsheet, not a spreadsheet, what's it called, a PowerPoint with one of those for each of the chapters as well, those thinking questions to get you ready for that chapter, that area of the maths. So about us, we don't work for Pearson, we work with Pearson. So I'm the head of maths at Ridgeway Secondary School in Redditch, and Mal's the lead practitioner at Stratford upon Avon High School. Both very different schools, different parts of their journey. And the reason why this works very well in terms of this presentation today is that we are at different spectrums of size school for models on how to teach this qualification and more importantly, who to deliver this qualification to. So we'll talk about I suppose the case studies a little bit later on, but we are from two different walks of life in terms of the schools, but there we are. We think very, very similarly, and we have the same hairstyles. We'll try and answer as many of these questions, and I'll come back to those in a second as we can. We are going to have a quick recap of the points that from the launch events. There's a couple we want to go into at a slower recap rather than a fast recap. You'll see those in a minute. How the qualification can be delivered through the case study ideas from myself and Mal, resource ideas, and that one, I've got to be honest with you, we would love some ideas back from you guys as well. So if you've started to think about this qualification on ideas on where to look for, please keep us posted on any ideas that we can share across the community. The support from Pearson and a bit of a roadmap through of where things are going to land along the journey up until the first exam next summer. So the questions myself and Mal were bounding around consistently and continually were these. We're going to try and get through as many of these as we can. If we don't, feel free to follow up after and go, you mentioned that at the start, but you didn't talk about it. We do have only 45, 50 minutes to get through these, but essentially it is a brand new qualification that's landed Where does it fit? Why does it fit? Where should I do it? Why should I do it? How much does it cost? What does it look like for the kid? What does it look like for the school? What does the kid get out from it at the end? And I think I'm going to sum it up at the very end, for me, two clear points. As much as it's brilliant for the kids, as much as it's another qualification for the kids, I'll hopefully sum it up with two of the points a little bit later on. So I'm going to pass over to Seb and or Grace, who are going to do a very quick recap of what was on the launch events. And the reason we're doing this is because there's a couple of real pertinent points that enable us to effectively get ready to teach. And I'll pass over to and or now.
Hi everyone. So some of you may have seen this in our launch event presentation. So just a kind of very high level overview. We did a lot of research at the start and we wanted to develop a qualification that really stretched, challenged and motivated learners to be able to kind of unlock their full potential in maths. And we really wanted to build that perfect foundation for those students that either want to continue mathematical study at A level, beyond, or just enjoy maths, or want to study a qualification that has quite a lot of maths in it, you know, science, geography, psychology, those kind of things. So we wanted to kind of create a qualification that gives a really, really strong foundation for their maths journey. This slide just builds on from that. So we wanted it to stretch and challenge, help them achieve their full potential, expand on students' mathematical knowledge. Everything that we've put in this qualification is based on student and teacher insights and feedback that we gained from you over the past few years. We've been a lot of kind of talking and chatting with teachers about what it is that you guys wanted from this qualification. And hopefully you've seen that in the specification and SAMs. We've got effortless switching. So if it's something you wanted to get involved with, please do get in touch with our team. A quick overview of our qualification structure. So there's two papers. They will be sat in the summer window next year in 2025. There's paper 1 is non-calculator, 60 marks, 75 minutes. Paper 2 is calculator, 60 marks, 75 minutes. And we did design them a little bit shorter than perhaps some other qualifications that are similar within this space. That was just designed because we knew students had a lot of kind of exams during the summer window. So we just kind of want to be mindful of that. And you'll also see a little pie chart at the bottom that talks about the different AOs, assessment objectives, and how these are assessed. So we are assessing all 3 assessment objectives in our qualification. 40% will assess kind of AO1, which is just your recall questions, and then 30% AO2 and AO3, which is more of your problem solving execution questions. Again, very brief kind of overall view of how we are grading this qualification. Again, this is based on feedback and research we gained from you guys. Grading system that we've decided to follow is a pass, merit, distinction, distinction star. You can see in that box there how they broadly align to the GCSE 9-to-1 grading system. But we chose this way of grading just because we wanted it to be really clear and distinct between the current GCSE, so there'll be no overlap. I think there's a little bit of confusion at times between qualifications that have a grading structure with numbers that perhaps got a 4 at a level 2 qualification and a 9 in a GCSE qualification, and how that compared when the two actually aren't comparable. So we wanted to make it really easy for students and teachers to understand when it came to the differences between those grades. So we went with this type of grading system. Seb, do you want to talk about the textbook, or are you happy for me to continue?
Yeah, no, I'm quite happy to. Just really briefly, yeah, we've developed a textbook that's run alongside it. It's there. I'm going to drop in the link where you can order it, and you download a free sample for a chapter. It's really, really well put together textbook that Mel's nodding along to, which is always a good endorsement. I'll pop the link in there. You can download yourself a free chapter, and there's and alongside that as well, there's also an Active Hub Essential teaching package, which you can get in touch with us for and have a little demo for. So yeah, those are the paid for resources that we've developed alongside the qual as well. Here you go. There's a little snapshot of what the textbook looks inside, but it follows the structure of our scheme of work. Loads and loads and loads of exam practice in there. So exam style questions. The authors of the textbook there is a crossover between the authors of the textbook and our examiners. So we've had that ensured that consistency of approach. And the thing that people said they wanted was lots of practice. So that's what we've done in abundance. Lots of problem solving, lots of things like that. And I say the active hub that goes along with it, there's the front of class book, there's video walkthroughs in there, hide and reveal, front of class stuff, along with full work solutions, solution banks to everything as well. So that we really have tried to put together everything that you need to support it. And yeah, and it all goes towards supporting these sort of principles that the headlines of our qualification. It's aimed at those higher achieving GCSE maths learners. It's designed to be co-taught alongside, and yeah, we've tried to base everything around, you know, kind of making a qualification that you asked for and you wanted.
If you do want a copy, it's going to have to be a purchase copy, but you can also, if you want to get a flavour of it before purchasing it, you can see that chapter and get a bit of a flavour for how it looks, how it feels, and what the kids would respond to it. My gut feeling straight away from that is excellent in terms of the space for the kids. Dare I say this, I do feel that it's going to end up being one that you would use and actively use, and a bit like your A-level classes at school, where you've bought them the old Core 1 module books and they've got them, and when you get them back, there's pencil marks all over it. So I do have the feeling that it's going to be one that is going to be very active to use, rather than one that you can give out and students use on a piece of paper and use from it. And I don't know if you've got that same feeling, Mal, that when instantly I've gone to it, because of the space around the questions, it makes me feel naturally I want to write in this book.
In the book, because of the spaces, it made me feel, and I've already started working through mine, and it becomes a very, rather than it being a textbook, it's felt like a workbook alongside it. So yeah, there's some lovely questions in there. I like textbooks. I like working through them, even if I'm not going to, for some of my students, I might not do the qualification, but I'm sat there going, there's some lovely questions in here that I could break down and scaffold for students lower down the school as well. I just was comforted by the fact that it's done by the same examiner. Some of them are the examination team that have developed the specification. So you're not going to get that different feel between that's not what we've taught them and then them turning up to an exam that doesn't feel like the stuff that you've taught them.
When we went through these launch events and getting ready to teach for the 9-1 GCSE, so back in 2015 onwards for those events, essentially it was the same GCSE, a new numbering system with a few extra topics. So 99% of the people who came to those events getting ready for that new qualification would know 95% of the qualification. It was just a few extra topics that we had to think about. With this being such a blank canvas of, it's a brand new qualification, okay, but a brand new opportunity. Anything you think anecdotally throughout this session today, pop it in the chat, and I know the first thing Grace will be doing is jotting that down, ready to take back to the team. So for me, that new GCSE, brilliant. I'll go out, I'll learn about the new qualifications, but essentially maths is maths, everything else is there. This is a brand new beast, brand new machine, a brand new item. For me, that textbook is the core for what I'm doing next year with my group. And I'll talk about the case study for my group of kids shortly. So whether it's one that gets used and puts underneath that visualizer and is part and parcel of the lessons, or one each for the students, that's yet to be decided. I'm going to do a bit of a begging letter to the head teacher first to try and get the funding to do that. But one, at the very least, is the core for how the lessons are going to get molded, because we've got is it 9 or 8? I think it's 9 chapters, 10 chapters. So 10 chapters broken down. This is how we're going to structure it, and the visualizer is going to come in essentially as the main focal point for the lessons around this this book. So this is not a selling job in the slightest. This is, where can we get the level, the idea, the maths what's going to be examined in 12 months' time for this brand new qualification, this is your place. And that's what my teacher that I was talking about earlier, when we went through the book, this is right up my street. This is going to give me the ideas to go with. And yeah, like Mel said, like I've said, it feels like a workbook as well as a guide to what's going to be in that exam. So the big questions answered. The first one, schema work. Okay, I want to teach it. You've told me the qualification. It's going to be brilliant for my kids. It's going to be brilliant for this group. It's going to be brilliant for this selection of individuals. Is there a schema work? Yes. So the schema work, bang, is ready for you to go. There is a couple of assumptions that I do want to put there that the schema work will go with. And they're at the bottom. It assumes that year 10 have followed the higher scheme of work up until that point. It assumes 1 hour of teaching in year 11 dedicated for this qualification. That's on top of the GCSE that's being taught alongside it. It does include suggested teaching hours, links to the GCSEs, A-level, the IGCSE, the international GCSE as well. But those two big assumptions at the bottom. So there is something ready to run with and get going.
The difficulty when you're doing a getting ready to teach is some of you will already be ahead of the game. Some of you will be playing catch up and some will be just coming along to have a look. So we've got to try to deliver information that so everybody will get at least one golden nugget. So my chain of thought in terms of delivering this is to take the schema work, and because of where we are, and my context is different in terms of where we are in our journey, is that I would take that schema work, take those learning objectives, and as we have done with other level 2 qualifications, just literally highlight on our schema work where we need to extend that current content and say that these are set 1 students or the kids doing the level 2 need to take this topic further and they need to take it to this point. And then that can be delivered in a number of ways, which we'll talk about the different modes. And again, some of you will deliver this but in your normal classroom teaching, and you will just extend. So you'll overteach to all your students. So you might say, I've got to teach one of the topics, I've got to teach it to that far. So I'm going to teach every student rather than it being just for my level 2 qual students. Or it might be that you're going to do it after school with just a smaller number of students. And that's dependent on your context.
For me, this is the big point that I needed to get my head round. There is a qualification out there that enables you to push students on. We've utilised it in schools before. The school I'm in at the moment is in a very different position. It's converting from a middle school to be a secondary. And we've got different areas to address, and there's no historic data of utilising certain qualifications for your high attaining students. But the previous school, in fact, where myself and Mal spent 5 years teaching, it was part and parcel that the top set 1 in year 11 did the other qualification that's out there, further maths. So what is this qualification about in comparison to the other one that's out there? And I don't mean this in a competition type of way. I mean it in terms of why choose this, why do that, why go here. For me, this is the big element. I said there's 2. The first one we've touched on slightly, and I'll go back to it in a minute anyway. This is the big one for me. This qualification from Pearson has been a long time coming, and I don't know why it's taken them so long, but it's here, it's there. There's a lot of thought that's gone into it, but it is content at GCSE that's being pushed on. There is no new content that needs to be taught. It is not about, we have got to crowbar in this extra bit of random maths that you're not going to need at A-level or not going to need at GCSE, or you're not going, it's just, I'm not saying others have that, I'm saying that this doesn't have that. This qualification is about extending and pushing on what they are learning already to best bridge the gap at A-level, but also doesn't take them on a random route to different content I'm not going to say for the sake of it, because it is about teaching maths and the love of maths and developing maths. But when I've watched another qualification being delivered and it comes to one of those extra ones, the teaching feels very much so, and Mal's going to back this up because it was at the same school together, it felt as if you're learning it by rote to get through that bit, but we'll spend more time on this bit that actually will benefit the GCSE, will benefit the A-level. The content for me is number one, and that's what this has got. And I know you guys are here already, and you've probably got past that bit and seen it already. But like Mal said, we need to reinforce that. This is beautifully sitting alongside what you are doing already.
So some of you will, in terms of have that content already, some of you won't be there yet. So we did need to cover it just to make sure that signposts where that all can be found. It's all on the Emporium. So there'll be stuff that if you're coming from an existing qualification, you might not need to teach, but some of you, this is entirely new. So you just go, what additional content do I need to teach? These are quite difficult, trying to make sure that everybody gets something from these events.
So I think that is a great reckoner, that document, like Mal said, on the Emporium. If you can't find it for any reason, we'll signpost to it in a couple of slides' time where these things are. But it's almost like, okay, what's there, what's here, what's there, what's here, what's both? And that just makes a nice, very easy, I suppose, document just to go through and find out what those comparisons are and where it fits. And we are going to have different scenarios in the room and across the country, whether you utilise one exam board for GCSE, one exam board for the additional qualification. You might have the same in both, and keeping those, for me, this is important, the fonts, the layout, the look of it, the same. Now, I did mention that the big one for me, one, the content, two, what Grace has already talked about, is that grading structure. I want something for this qualification to be different to everything else. I don't want to be given a number on this qualification that cannot match up to the GCSE numbers, because it is not a GCSE. We can do this, we can align it, we can do what we want, but that number that comes out with this qualification cannot be the same number at GCSE. And I know employers find that difficult to get their head round. This is a different qualification. It's not GCSE. This shouldn't be given a number that then, if someone rocks up with a grade 9 at GCSE, but then a grade 4 or a 5 on this extended certificate, employers and colleges and sixth forms and whatever out there will automatically put those two numbering systems side by side. They're not. So for me, a student coming out with a pass, it automatically invokes that conversation. Oh, tell me about this. What is this qualification? Secondly, it makes it stand alone. This is, I have got a pass on the extended maths. It's not GCSE, this is the extended. So just making it crystal clear for my kids going out there, this is something different.
Yeah, so that's just making sure that, so the step one in all this about getting ready to teach, you've got to make sure you understand the content, where you're going to place it within your existing scheme of work, or is it going to be run after school? But also, how does it help them with the next step? Because some of you, again, will different contexts, will have mapped out your journey as a 7-year journey, including years 12 and 13. How does that bridge that gap? So each of you will have your own context. All of these different schemes of works and the different mapping documents are available on the Emporium, relatively easy to find.
What's brand new is that the 1-year scheme of work now has been updated with all the spec references in full, including the GCSE International as well. So that's brand new headline news as of, I think it was yesterday. Something else that landed yesterday, brand spanking new, is obviously not the GCSE scheme of work, that's been there a while, but the GCSE scheme of work that has now got the extended maths certificate, so this qualification integrated into that 2-year span. And what I found really interesting when I went into that, not just the notes on the certain, and I don't think I took a screenshot, I should have, where those opportunities are, There's examples from the SAMs and from the textbook idea as well of the maths that goes with it. So you've got a real development opportunity embedded with the schema work that so many of us use. And that is literally hot off the press as of yesterday, with the extended content objectives. And that was literally brand new, off the press yesterday. Seb, can you give me the nod? Is that also now live on the Emporium? Oh, the thumbs up from Seb. That's also now in the Emporium, ready to go.
So even if you don't use that schema work, it should signpost where you can link those topics within your own bespoke schema work, if that's what you choose to do. So it's not about, so most people will follow the Pearson schema work, but if you don't, you can go, okay, when I teach X topic, it's being suggested that I extend it through or extend it to include these EMC topics. So we would just say about the textbook, we won't labour the point, but the textbook is an amazing, as you would do with any other level 2 qualification. It's the way we've always done it in the past. So in terms of a case study, our students were all issued with a copy of a textbook. There was a relatively expensive outlay to start off with, but we did get them back every year. So it was definitely worth doing. Then you've got your aiming for grade 7, 8, and 9 papers. So what I'd say is, again, being selective, but if depending on your context, I always talk about context being king. This is an ideal qualification for those students that you're looking to get a grade 7, 8, or 9. So we're not just talking about the grade 9 students. And so trying to get them good at all maths, whether it's the level 2 or it's the GCSE, will benefit. They'll be mutually beneficial. Definitely worth looking at those. I'd actually have used everything from a grade 1 to a grade 9.
Mal, the first thing when we met up a couple of weeks ago to go, right, what is it about these questions that we wanted answering? And Mal just said, what I want is something nice and quick, one sheet. These are your topics. These are your areas. And I know Grace and the team are working on creating a nice, easy, one-page tick sheet. It's almost like a crib sheet of, right, we're going to be running this next year, this year, next week, whenever it happens to be. These are the areas. And not going into a schema works brilliant. A mapping document is brilliant. But a quick crib sheet of pinned to the wall in that classroom where it's going to be delivered, job done.
So there's a lovely little folder that has been set up for the level 2 math extended math certificate. There's still lots of teachers that don't access the Emporium. The Emporium is the everything. It's where, and on the right hand side, that extended, you can see the upcoming events of when things are being released. So if new SAMs are being released, we'll get told about it there, the emails, but definitely keep having a delve in that folder. And in there, you'll find the spec, teacher guidance, schemes of work, mappings, topic papers, which we're going to talk about.
In the Emporium, live now, and they are brand spanking new, topic papers that match the textbook, obviously match the spec in terms of the breakdown of this qualification. And I think the next slide, Mal, shows those topic tests. And I've updated this presentation now because they've actually got on the front of these topic tests a little QR code that the students then can take them to a link to a video that supports it. And I don't mean a video of like an iPad with the writing suddenly appearing. This is, if I get this right, is it Dave Swan's hand? Have we getting some nods? Is that correct?
Yeah, Dave Swan, one of our senior examiners for the qualification.
So senior examiner,
author of the textbook as well.
But also the name that's on the bottom of that textbook, his hand going through, and it was something Mal said on the last presentation that I'm going to jump in and steal a thunder on this. I couldn't put my finger on it. Why is it that these type of videos are better? Not just ones where a false calculator pops up or the writing appears. What is it that makes these ones better? Okay, they can bring a real calculator in, they can point, they can do whatever. But what it is, it's the natural pause of those hands that dictate and indicate the thought process that's going on. And the pointing and the highlighting and when you naturally talk and the finger's not moving and you can see the link between the brain and the pen, that was the nail on the head for me last week when you said it, Mel. That's why these videos are brilliant. So they are there now, live, that match these topic questions, these topic papers. So get these printed off, get them ready, get a nice suite of them all ready to go over the course of the next academic year. But these are brilliant, done by the examiners, that match the topics, and the video matches the book, which matches the exam paper, which matches the people who are writing the exam questions. There's a lot of thought up thinking going on here.
Yeah, so I think they're brilliant, and you would use them as you go along. You might use them you might deliver the content, or you might give them to homework and take away the excuses when they say, oh, I didn't know what to do. Well, there's a video link on the front, because part of this will be about the students. Some students, again, depending on your context, some students have to be very self-motivated, and it is literally very quick and pacey in a lesson. And then it's got to be, right, you now need to go and practice. It is over to you, which is the way we've always done it. We've delivered the content, 1 or 2 examples, right, you now need to go off and practice that. And this is ideal for it, especially because there is that extra support. So I think they're superb.
I'm from a very small school that is growing, but we've also got to be thinking about the bigger picture here. Why? And Ofsted went into one of our partner schools recently, the last couple of weeks, and the big question there was, and it's rightfully so, how many of your students left here to go on to do maths? Quite easy with schools with sixth form, not so easy for us where we haven't got a sixth form. So their careers advisor went off, found the data, found the figures, and for me, made me think, okay, where last year, I wasn't at this school last year. I was part way through. So I went back and found the information anyway. Very small year groups, but no one was going off to develop maths. Why is no one going off to do maths? That means I failed. I failed that these kids don't want to, and I'm not saying everyone wants to do it and everyone will go off and do it, but why is no one biting at that chance to go and do more maths? And for me, talking through this Mocksted today and developing this plan of what we've got going forward with this qualification, it's going to be a small number. It's going to be about 3 students, but we have only got, and bear in mind, we've got a year group, a pan of 120. This was when this school was not being chosen for their secondary school because it was a middle school. We've got 30 in year 10 going into year 11. 30 students. We've got big year groups underneath that have started to choose this as their secondary school of choice. So I've got 3 students in mind that are going to be doing this qualification. In year 9 going into year 10, I've got about 15 in mind. In year 7 and 8 going forward, it's going to be my set 1 going into this qualification. So I've got probably a mix of all different case scenarios with the year groups coming through. But I've got a select few that are going to be doing this after school, lunchtimes, in the gaps where we can make it work. We do have a little bit of flexibility with maths teaching next year. We've got a maths teacher who's hopefully got about 3 hours under allocation that we can build in to possibly take out of the maths lessons to develop it within the maths lessons. But essentially, we've got the scenario of bolt-on time to try and make this work. That is going to be the model that we're going to have probably for the next 2 years, bearing in mind that as we get to our 7 and 8s, they're going to be the ones that hopefully I can have whole class teaching. So for me, and my email address is there, if you fall into that model and you want chats going forward, we said this last week, this is not a presentation we finish. We want this to be a relationship that you work with me and Mal doing this qualification next year. We want you to talk to us. We want you to share your ideas. If you've got the opportunity for me in particular to see it in situ, let me know. I'll try and get to your school and come and see it. If you want to see how we're doing it in the small case scenario, drop me an email, come and see it. It will be after school. It will be at lunch times. It will be in those bolt-on periods. But please, 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 keep in touch. I want to know what you're doing, any resources you find to help me in my school, but also I want I want us to make this a community. This is the EMC community.
Right, so I'm not going to labour the point about the content, because most of that content, if you're here, you've either looked at the content, think it's exciting. The sample assessment materials will be part of your resources that you're going to use. Like everything, just bear in mind they are sample assessment materials, so they will still be used as examples for class content, whether it's an I do, you do. There is some stuff that we'll talk about coming up in terms of so here we go straight into and these are perfect for I do, you do within class. So we've got sample shadow versions of the sample assessment materials that are due very soon to be published. I would use them in terms of when it comes to modelling underneath my visualizer that's on my desk here. Here's the question that I'm going to do now, you do them. And we'll talk, there's a slide that gives you a roadmap in terms of the other materials that are due out. We've talked a little bit about the 60 guided learning hours, and then it does depend on how you do it. So it is all about context. I can't sit here and say, you need to do this an hour a week after school, if that's not your model. It will be for somebody like Sega, and it does depend on your situation. So Sega would be talking about a bit more self-study, whereas another school might be talking about delivering that content in lessons. Another model might be that you're in the situation, and this is the one that I get really excited about, is offering it as an enrichment option in your options block. Not just this, though. I think there's a great opportunity for us to offer maths enrichment as an option block, especially for some of you that are in a situation where you may need another teacher, but you haven't quite got enough student numbers. Well, if I get maths in an option block, I can then commit to covering, I don't know, 6 hours a week for another teacher, 6 hours a fortnight, and building a little bit of capacity within the department. And within that enrichment block, you could offer statistics, but do it properly, i.e. foundation kids follow the foundation route, higher kids follow the higher route. And hopefully they would all be higher kids, because then you could offer them this. We're offering a financial package alongside economics as an option block. And I'm starting to talk to sell the idea that maybe we need to have an enrichment block, because I want the next generation of students to be better at maths than me. So again, it's all about context and where you sit in that. Some of you, however, in terms of case study, we're at the other extreme where we're going to have 330 kids in a year group. We've got an extension happening at the front of the building, so massive building going on. We're one of the top 10% schools in the country. We currently offer a level 2 qualification. And it is because of the way we do it is that the kids, it's after school. It is signposted on our scheme of work to extend where we can. But because of the numbers and the impact that it will have to our post-16, it's something that we are backing off slightly and saying, okay, because like some of you in the room, you will be a little bit uncertain because you want to watch everybody else go through and let's see where the grey boundaries lie. Because that's the other thing, that people will be sat there going, I turned up to getting ready to teach and I want to know about grey boundaries. The same way with the GCSE, we don't know at this point. And I'm maybe a little bit risk averse because we've got bigger numbers involved. So I will sit back and watch. I'm almost committing to sitting the qualification myself, because I have a belief that I want to be able to sit a qualification if I'm going to deliver it. I want to understand it. So there's lots of different models that in terms of where you teach it and the way you deliver it. I know there will be lots of you out there saying, I need to know what kind of percentages do we need to get the distinction star or the pass. We don't know until we go through a series, is the truth. The maths team will be able to give you some guidance in terms of once you've started using the sample assessment material. But it's like any new qualification, that data isn't there until we have a new sitting. And there is and as those sittings go on, be careful that there will be some up and down, is a proper word for up and down, where the great variation in the grade boundaries, because we get used to the qualification, it's called the sawtooth effect. And that is natural, where grade boundaries will fluctuate as we get better at teaching certain topics. So there is a possibility of doing it in year 12, year 10, because it's on the 14 to 16 approved list. If you can't find it on the approved list, because I know some exams officer, again, email the maths team and they will signpost your exams officer to be able to find it. It's not yet on there approved for post 16. Is that right, Grace? But it is something that the team is working on to be able to do it for our post 16 students.
Yeah, at the moment the funding exists 14-16. I'll put the DFE link in the chat, but yeah, there is an embargo on post 16 maths qualifications having funding for that 16 to 18 funding. So hasn't at the moment. We'll be keeping a very close eye on whether that policy those policies change over the coming weeks, months, years, etc. So it's something we'll keep a very close eye on. But 14-16 funding at the moment.
I genuinely think it's an interesting qualification. It's about, for me, it's at the core of why we teach, about making them better mathematicians. But in order to do that, we need the support from the exam boards. And the one thing I do think that the exam boards have been better at since the last round of reform is providing support for us. If there isn't anything that you think, oh, what I'd really like is this, email them. And if you've thought about it, you can guarantee other teachers that are teaching the qual will have also thought of it. So first things first, the spec. Have a go at the sample assessment materials. There's work solutions for those. You've got your course guide, you've got the schemes of work, you've got all those mapping documents to be able to map where you're going to teach it, when you're going to teach it with your existing content. If you're in a context where it's your only, this is a bolt onto your GCSE. But there's schemes of work that just detail the content on its own. If you might be offering this as a standalone qualification. Then you've got your exam wizard and results plus data. So looking at the performance of similar questions, exams wizard will be updated with in the same way that you can filter questions by different IGCSE, one MAO or one MA1. You'll be able to filter it by the EMC. We've got the shadow sample materials that are coming, the course guide. If you want to take a QR code, get your phones out, but it will be on the PowerPoint slides anyway, to get a sample of the textbook. Then make sure you're registered on the Maths Emporium, and as new materials published, you'll get notified about them. But in terms of registering your interest, I think that's important, that if you are looking or thinking about doing the qualification, there is no commitment to doing it. It's the opportunity for you to help mould the qualification, but also to get access to the materials that if you do it, or to be able to say, we want this, because it is a great opportunity for us to make a difference to, or pass on that knowledge to our students. When you get students, and I'm going to leave with an anecdote, I just done a lovely little activity with my year 9s where it was a 9x9, a 3x3 grid, where they had to find how many shapes, filled that up, rearranged blocks in that shape that had a perimeter of 12 centimeters. And it was one of those low threshold, high ceiling activities. And there's 16 different ways of doing it. And these kids that traditionally may not think that they're amazing at maths because they have this idea maths is about numeracy, and maths isn't. It is the problem solving element. It is being able to get into a problem, and once you start solving a problem, the next avenue opens, and then all of a sudden 2 more avenues open. And that's what this is about, getting some of those students on the route to be able to do something like this where you're having some fun with maths. Because I genuinely, some of the problems as I've worked through the textbook have made me go, oh, I like that. It's a bit like Doctor Who when he talks about recreational maths, and we should do more recreational maths, and we should. So this is a great opportunity for that. All the resources we've signposted are available on the Emporium or any of those links. The Maths Emporium for me is the one. And then in terms of dates, because for some students, it's a factor. When is that exam? Does it mean it's going to be I'm going to be the last student out of the exam hall, or is it before food technology? It is on the same day as astronomy and Russian, apparently. And on the 18th of June, there is nothing else on. And I do believe that food technology still sits after it. So it's not the last exam. Because again, context, I know that some students would choose not to take a qualification if it meant extending their exam period. But that's just my context. And some would love the idea of extending their exams. Said no one ever. And then in terms of for those A-level teachers out there, if you haven't heard, there have been improvements to their A-level papers over the last couple of years. More information available there. And there's mine and Seeger's email. Christian loves emails. So it's christian@justmaths.co.uk, or there is and I've seen in the chat, Pearson, is it Teaching Maths?
Teaching Maths at pearson.com.
Yeah.
So for all those general inquiries or queries about, particular marking points on the sample assessment materials, or if you just want to get in touch and want to give us a bit of feedback or anything like that, we're always always happy to listen. So teaching maths at pearson.com is the best way for that. Yes.
So for me, I think the overriding point I would make to finish it off is that make sure you know the content and have mapped it to your scheme of work in your context. Know when you're going to teach it, what model are you going to do after school? Have you got the opportunity to do it within teaching time? Is it going to be a hybrid model? Is it going to be self-study from the students where you literally deliver a couple of examples and then give them the work to do? Again, I can't dictate that because I don't know how many different contexts we've got there. And then make sure, ideally, you have a textbook, at least one for the teacher, just to know how far that looks in reality, because it's all well and good telling me what the spec reference says, but what does that really look like? And then have access to the sample assessment material and all of those practice papers. The practice papers is something I would use in my teaching. And I think that is as much as we would have got from the getting ready to teach events at the GCSE in terms of classroom teaching. We got some stuff that you can use these straight away. And if there's something that you think you want to be able to start to teach this, let us know. And we will do our utmost to make sure it gets delivered to us, because it's about the right thing to do for those students.
Brilliant, thank you, Mel. I know we've run a few minutes over, but I really appreciate everyone's time. So I'll let you go and have your evening. But thank you so much, Mel. Hopefully you've taken away, like Mel said, one of those golden nuggets that's going to help you getting ready to teach this. Like I say, we are we pride on ourselves on listening to feedback and making sure that you've got what you need in order to teach our qualifications properly. So please do get in touch, and we really look forward to not just seeing how you get on with this qualification, but working with you to make sure this is the success that we all believe it can and should be. So I'll leave it there, but have a lovely evening, and we hope we're going to hear from you soon. So thanks all, and goodbye.